Hey you, yeah you who clicked on this video. Thanks for giving our channel a shot. And if you will, please do us the honor of watching the video all the way through. Appreciate it. Now onto the video.
So the wait is finally over. After all this time, we are finally been treated back to one of my favorite, surprisingly favorite sci-fi series of the past 10 years, and that being Seth MacFarlane's The Orville. Now, I want you guys to understand, we haven't had an episode of The Orville since April 25th, 2019. That is crazy. That is a insane amount of time. That means that we haven't had an episode of the Orville for 3 years. Like it's literally been 3 years, and we're just not getting it. And wow, what a return to form this was. So. This episode of the Orville, by the way, the Orville has now taken on a new name. It's the Orville New Horizons, and I think that's very appropriate, which recently aired. And it actually hasn't gotten the promotion that I would like, but you can't get everything that you want. So I'm just happy that it's back, and I'm going to promote the heck out of it. And I hope that if you're a sci-fi fan and you really enjoyed this show previously, that you'll promote the heck out of it too. But with that being said, let's get into it. So this episode opens up with Ty having a really bad dream. Actually, no, I'm sorry. It's Marcus having a really, really bad dream about the events with the Kalon and their vicious attack on the Union, um, just recently. And now, he wakes up and he's in a cold sweat. And honestly, I would be too. I mean, especially given that Isaac had been among them for so long, only to be found out as basically being a unwitting double agent. And I just thought that this was really crazy, and just the way that this episode opens up, it opens up on a somber tone, and you kind of know what's coming with with the passing of Norm Macdonald, as we know him in this series, Lieutenant Yaphet. It's bittersweet, especially considering that we've waited so long for the series, and now to have it only for one of the really just better characters to literally lose his voice in the idea that the actor has passed on. So rest in peace, Norm Macdonald. So what we're getting in this episode after uh, the nightmare from Marcus Finn is essentially the Orville is being refitted, and so we get to see a lot of new things. So a lot of new features on the ship, a lot of new characters. So one thing that I thought was really cool was Gordon piloting one of the newer, I guess you could say, individual fighters, and just watching, because Gordon, of course, being the best pilot, or one of the best, if not the best pilot in the Union, flying this little fighter is just awesome. It's really cool, and I really enjoyed it, like, wholeheartedly. Just the money and the care and the special effects that are put into this series, knowing that it's not necessarily, even though its quality and its writing is fantastic, we know that this series was put on hold for a little bit more than COVID. In particular, I have a very looming suspicion that a certain show that also kind of stands for a venereal disease, Star Trek STD, had a lot to do with this being pushed back, because we noticed that stupid series didn't have any problems, with production or anything else due to the coof. So it's kind of sad that we had to wait so long, but I guess quality takes a little bit longer than fast food. So you get what you get. So, just seeing what's going on, seeing all of our bridge crew, and in particular, what I found surprising was that Isaac is still on the bridge of the Orville and still has his duties as an officer of the Orville. And apparently, I'm not the only one that thought that this was strange, because after a little bit of banter back and forth between Lamar and Isaac. Isaac goes to the mess hall only to be summarily shunned by the rest of the crew of the Orville. And honestly, I understand. Being that the crew of the Orville currently is a lot of the original crew, but a lot of officers from other ships that probably were downed in the Kalon conflict. In particular, one ensign, Charlie Burke, played by Ann Winters. And this character seems to have a lot to say as far as Isaac is concerned, and she relays that a mentor and friend of hers who was serving on her previous ship died, saving her life, sacrificing herself so that Ensign Burke could live, and she is none too pleased or excited to have Isaac on the ship with them. And honestly, this does make sense. I mean, this is a traitor. Whether he was in control or not, the fact of the matter is that morale is going to be a huge issue going forward if Isaac stays on the team. And you know, this episode was just interesting because when Isaac gets back to where Lamar was running a systems check, we see that the words traitor are scrawled across one of the walls, and now Kiali and Captain Mercer are trying to figure out who has done this. And you know, Kelly's also there, and it's interesting because now they have to do this whole investigation thing to figure this out. And once they do in fact figure it out, we find out that it was in fact Marcus. And you know, Marcus has some feelings about what has happened. And you know, his family was very close to Isaac. I mean, he was basically a surrogate father for them, which you know, one thing that's weird about this show, not to get off on a tangent, but we still don't know like if Ty and Marcus have a dad. Like he's never mentioned. Are they test tube kids? Is that how we do in the future? But regardless, so Dr. Finn, you know, has her own feelings about Isaac and about the things that have transpired because she was in a relationship with him. I mean, as crazy as it sounds, you know, she was in a relationship with this particular sentient AI life form, and he betrayed her. And you know, she still loves him, obviously, but can you love a person after such a deep betrayal? So when Isaac goes to apologize to Marcus, and you know, the apology, you know, it's as, I guess it's as genuine as he can muster, really. I mean, Isaac is, you know, still an AI. He's still not human. So he attempts to apologize, and Marcus lets him have it, and he lets him know that he wishes that he was dead. And this episode really sparks such an interesting conversation, which is what OG Star Trek and Next Generation really did, was they sparked a conversation. And this episode of the Orville is no different in following that tradition when they start talking about the idea of self-deletion. You know, we got to be careful about our words when we're talking about certain topics on YouTube because, you know, Mama Susan and the almighty algorithm will come down on you like a ton of bricks if you say the wrong no-no words. So, you know, Isaac basically creates a makeshift EMP that essentially goes so far down into his programming that it would be impossible to bring him back, or so we think. And so we really get a chance to see, like, they take their time in showing us just, you know, what the whole, when a person decides to self-terminate, what that brings in the people around them and the people that are left behind. And we see that even the people that didn't like Isaac, or in some cases hated him, because of the fashion in which he has decided to remove himself from the situation, we see, you know, that there is definitely a void missing. And it's definitely visible in certain characters, in particular Marcus, but really not necessarily surprising, but I just found that it was interesting that they focus on Lamar and on how he feels about it. And, you know, there's just a really interesting scene with an alien character named Aurelia, played by Alexis Knapp, and basically this is after a coupling between Lamar and this character, and they start discussing it, and you can see that the range of emotions from sadness to anger in Lamar. And Aurelia is talking to him about how in her culture they view every choice as something, almost something to be venerated, because people don't necessarily choose to, be brought into the world, but choosing how you go out is, something that a sentient life form should be celebrated for. And Lamar really he has a problem with that, and most people do. And through this back and forth, Lamar is given an idea, and he basically goes into Isaac's core and finds that there are still remnants of his consciousness left, and that they can be restored if the ship doesn't go through too many changes and and fluctuations. They can bring Isaac back, and wouldn't you know it, when this happens, they're attacked by the Kaylon. So we're still dealing with this. And what's interesting about this is that we see that the only real person that can bring Isaac back is actually the person that, for the most part, hates him the most, and that's Ensign Charlie Burke. And, when Ed asks her to help, she initially says no. And, you definitely understand her point of view. And it gets to the point where Ed has to literally order her to help or relieve her of duty, and he relieves her of duty. But after talking to Marcus, and Marcus telling her that basically he made a mistake in letting his emotions control his judgment, and telling Isaac that he wished that he was gone, she decides, for the sake of this boy's mental health, that she's going to help. So, they fight with the Kaylon. They, some really cool special effects. They actually dive into a red dwarf in order to, or is it a brown dwarf? I can't remember. But they dive into this star in order to basically hide in the electromagnetic field, so that the Kaylon can believe that they're in fact, neutralized and move on. So they're able to bring back Isaac, and it's a really nice scene, but it's interesting because Isaac is very confused as to why he was brought back, given that people hate him so much. And just the scenes between Dr. Finn and him are really just, oh man, they're so emotional and so well acted, and it's so well written. I really just enjoy this entire scene, and the seriousness in which a show that's sci-fi, comedy, and action is able to take itself seriously for a serious topic. And what's interesting to me, that if you're really paying attention, you really get to see a juxtaposition between two characters that commit seppuku in this particular series. So one being Ensign Burke's friend from the ship. She self-terminated, but to save Ensign Burke. Whereas Isaac self-terminates in order to, for the most part, in order to, what he says, or how he explains it, to increase the efficiency and morale of the crew. And it's just very interesting how people take both of these sacrifices. Granted, the circumstances are different, but the result is the same. There's still that same hole being left in the hearts of the people left behind. And I love that this episode doesn't tell you how to feel or what's right or what's wrong, but rather just presents both sides of the conflict, and then lets the viewer decide. They entrust the viewer with enough maturity and sense to make their own decision, and not chastise you for it. And that's very rare, especially in today's climate, to really have that kind of storytelling in place. And this just makes the show all the more special. And this show definitely, if you're a fan of sci-fi, if you're a fan of Star Trek, definitely needs to be watched. And really, if you haven't seen the first 2 seasons, they're on Hulu. Watch them, and just really enjoy this wonderful show for as long as it's on the air. I know I am. So with that being said, guys, thanks for watching the video. We'll catch you on the next one. And 8-Bit Heroes out. Peace.
If you'd like to get a shout out on the channel, then hit that like button, maybe share it with a couple of friends, and do us the biggest honor of all, and subscribe to the channel so you can join the 8-Bit Heroes family. And while you're at it, hit that bell icon so you can be notified when our new videos come out.